For those of us who grew up in the early days of the internet before corporate control, heavy censorship, and algorithm driven content, the modern web can feel very sterile, predictable, and quite frankly boring. The early internet was chaotic, free, and full of unfiltered raw information and a huge amount of millennial trauma. It was a place where personal websites, independent forums, and obscure communities thrived. It wasn't perfect, but it was open and driven by curiosity rather than profit. I'm Will, I host the Bald Book Geek. Check out memberships and Patreon for exclusive content you'll never get anywhere else, and don't forget to tell me what you think in the comments below. Let's talk about it. Today, much of the spirit is dead on the surface internet. There is no way around it. Replaced by social media echo chambers, paywalls, and search engines that prioritize revenue over knowledge. If you're looking for a real discussion, genuinely intelligent exploration, or controversial information that hasn't been sanitized for mainstream consumption, good luck. The modern internet, especially the parts controlled by Google, have become a little more than just a tightly controlled shopping mall with walled off information and carefully curated narratives. But the dark web is another story. Let's be clear. A common misunderstanding about the dark web. The dark web is not just a criminal underground of dealers and hitmen for hire, though that's what Hollywood would have you believe. It's simply a portion of the internet that isn't controlled by modern search engines like Google or Bing. To access it, you typically need a specialist web browser, which makes you anonymous and anonymizes your connection and allows you to explore websites that end in .onion rather than .com, .co, or .org. The dark web is a mix of everything. Yes, some illicit activity, but also a wealth of free speech, forgotten knowledge, digital spaces that feel like the early days of the internet, where you can find anything. And it's fantastic. Oh, it does come with a warning though, don't worry. Most people associate the dark web with crime, thanks to media sensationalism. But that's only a fraction of what's there. For research, investigative journalism, and those who crave knowledge unfiltered by corporations or influence, the dark web is an invaluable resource. One of the biggest draws of the dark web is access to knowledge that has been suppressed or erased from surface web. That includes banned books and articles that governments and corporations don't want widely available, suppressed historical documents. They're fascinating, by the way, and it's absolutely amazing. And a lot of declassification and intelligence files that have been buried or difficult to find through conventional means, or you have to put in a request to get them. For research, digging into controversial topics, whether it's hidden aspects of history, corruption, alternative theories, the dark web can offer an insight that would be impossible anywhere else. Modern academia is often locked behind expensive paywalls. A single research paper can cost $30 or more just to view. Universities pay millions for database access, while independent researchers and general public are left out in the cold. On the dark web, platforms exist where academic papers, rare studies, experimental research are freely available. Some researchers upload their own work to avoid certain corporate gatekeeping of knowledge. While this obviously exists in a legal grey area, it's a lifeline for those who believe information should be freely available to all. The dark web is where the truth often comes to light before it's either buried or spun by mainstream media. I mean, I won't name the websites, just saying, there is a lot of whistleblowing places that share classified or sensitive information without fear of immediate suppression. Many major leaks, from government spying programs to corporate scandals, have surfaced here long before they make any public waves and appear at the front page of a Google search engine. If you want unfiltered raw data on controversial topics, you'll find it on the dark web long before it hits CNN or the New York Times. Beyond research, the dark web often feels like a time machine. back to the 90s and early 2000s. It's chaotic, wild, and full of niche communities. There's some great reading places and great places where you can just talk unfiltered. People share knowledge for the sake of it rather than for clicks, ad revenue, or algorithmic approval. And this is why it reminds me of the early web. One of the biggest problems with today's internet is you don't actually control what you consume, algorithms do. Social media platforms and search engines decide what content gets visibility, what trends, and what quietly disappears into digital oblivion. The dark web is different. There's no artificial intelligence curating your experience. You have to actively search, browse forums, and explore without being spoon fed by algorithms. It can make it a little frustrating to navigate because we're so used to an internet wherever we type something in and there it is. But it leads to a far more organic and unpredictable internet experience, much like the old days. While parts of the dark web can be extreme, it can also foster some of the most honest and in depth discussions on politics, philosophy, history, and niche interests. People speak freely without fear of censorship or getting deplatformed for having an unpopular opinion. This doesn't mean everything you read is either correct or even ethical, and far from it, but it does mean you get exposed to ideas that haven't been sanitized by mainstream gatekeepers. You got to think for yourself rather than being told what to believe, and that's something I firmly believe in. The early internet thrived on personal websites, forums, and obscure interest groups. Before social media, people built their own sites, maintaining active discussion boards and curating content of their own niche communities. And if you dig hard enough, you can still find these relics of the early internet today through Google. The dark web is one of the last places where this truly still exists. Instead of Facebook groups and Reddit threads governed by strict content policies, you find old school forums discussing everything from ancient history to survival tactics to experimental technology. The people who inhabit these spaces are often passionate, knowledgeable, and uninterested in mainstream approval. Of course, and I clarify this one, the dark web isn't without its dangers. Make sure you use the right web browser and all the settings are set right. Make sure you use a VPN. Dear God, make sure you use a VPN. Just be safe. There are scammers, there are hackers and law enforcement honeypots lurking in certain corners, downloading files without proper filtering can expose you to malware. Engaging with the wrong person or accessing illegal content can land you in serious trouble. But for those who want to take time to navigate it responsibly, and I mention that word, the dark web remains one of the last frontiers of true internet freedom. If you miss the early internet, the one driven by curiosity, knowledge sharing, and true digital exploration, the dark web might just be the closest thing we have left. It's not for everyone. It's not always safe. But it's real, and in an era where the surface web is becoming increasingly controlled, that's more valuable than ever.